before we start, but firstly, some housekeeping matters. Can everyone just please switch off their mobile phones or set them to silent? And similarly, if people have got notifications on their computers, if you can just try and keep them down so we can keep distractions to a minimum, please. I'll give everyone a moment just to do that. Okay. Can a representative of the council then please just explain the emergency evacuation procedures? Obviously, we just had a fire alarm test, so just the assembly point in the event of a fire, and confirm whether any further fire drills planned, please.
No further drills planned. Leave by the nearest exit, so you've got several exits in the room or the main staircase, and we would assemble in the car park. Bury's car park at the back there.
Thank you. Okay, and then just in terms of toilet facilities, there's just some toilets on the way in, just at the entrance to the council chamber. Right, so just moving on to appearances. For certainty, can I now take the names of those people and the qualifications, if they wish for them to be recorded, who will be actively involved in the inquiry throughout, including later sessions on appeals. Starting with the appellant, please.
Good morning, sir. My name is Charlie Banner, KC. Please do call me Mr. Banner rather than anything else. And I'm instructed by Savills for this matter on behalf of the Ismaili Trust. There are 5 witnesses whose details you have. I'll read them out. If you'd like a list of their qualifications, I will provide that in one consolidated document, if that helps.
That'd be helpful. I think I've already got it, but just for confirmation.
No problem. As well. So we start, so there's a little bit of feedback here. We start on the issue of need and why the Trust is promoting the scheme by Mr. Naushad Jivraj. Then secondly, the architect, the scheme architect, Mr. It's pronounced Neil McLaughlin, MBE RA. Then Catherine Ritson on landscape and visual matters. Melanie DeVette on highways. And Robert Steele on planning. And save for Ms. DeVette and Mr. Steele, you should have a proof and a rebuttal from everybody. Those 2 only have a proof. Thank you.
Sorry, just to confirm, Ms. Banner, I did receive something via email just correcting Neil McLaughlin's proof of evidence. Yes. So I have received that. Has that been shared with the council? Yes. And the council's happy for those corrections. Correct. Those corrections to be made. Yes, just as note, just if they can be added to as inquiry documents.
Just on that subject, we've got internally, but maybe something we could agree, a list of paragraph numbers in the framework to change. I think that's all that has changed of any real significance for this case, but in case that helps, we might agree it, and then you've got the ready reckoner of what the new paragraphs are, because if there's one certainty about changes to the framework, it's the paragraph numbers change. Yes,
that would be helpful as well. If we could say the correction to Mr. McLaughlin's proof of evidence, if we can accept that as inquiry document 1.
Yes, and again, just while I have the floor on inquiry documents, there's one document I've shared with Mr. Green already, which seeks to put in visual form a point that is and will be made verbally, which is where within the vicinity are there buildings with steeply pitched roofs. Rather than me sort of point them out to you on a plan, we thought, particularly in advance of the site visit, it might be helpful to you to have a plan with them marked up. So can I hand that up to you?
You can, as long as the council's got a copy as well.
They've got a couple of copies they have, sir. Well,
okay.
I'll give you a copy. Just in case you get back, I'll give you a couple, and then if one gets back, on the site visit, spare.
Okay, thank you.
So if any amendment after they want to do it, they can do so.
Okay, I'll accept that as inquiry document 2, as long as the council's content for that.
Yes, sir.
Anything further, Mr. Mann?
Sir, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green.
Thank you, sir. I'll introduce myself then. My name is Robin Green of Council. I have one witness, sir, Mr. Robert Collett, whose qualifications are listed in his proof and summary.
Thank you. Okay, I've reserved some time after the openings for myself and the main parties today for statements from interested parties, and also a further session tomorrow morning, should we need it. It does seem, with the number of requests that we received, we probably will need at least tomorrow morning. In advance of the inquiry, I've received a number of requests to make a statement. So in the following order that we received, I'll just go through the individuals, if they can just make themselves aware for me. So Mr. Tilbury from Farnham Town Council. Is Mr. Tilbury here today?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Thank you, Mr. Tilbury. Have you any constraints on attendance today or tomorrow in terms of when you're able to give evidence?
If I could make my statement today, that would be helpful, but I can attend tomorrow if necessary.
Thank you, Mr. Tilbury. Councillor Carol Coleman.
Yes, sir, that's me, sir. And I'm available today and tomorrow and the following day.
Thank you. Councillor Catherine Powell.
Yes, sir. I'm available today. Unfortunately, I have a planning meeting in Surrey tomorrow, so I'm not available tomorrow morning. Apologies.
Thank you. Madeline Gibb. Thank you. Jeffrey Hogg.
Yes, I'm available today and tomorrow.
Dave Walter.
Hi, I'm here, and yes, I'm available today and tomorrow.
Nafisa Herji.
I'm available today.
Thank you. Nagib Kirai.
Yes, I'm here and available today and in extremis tomorrow as well if needed.
Shihad Nanji.
Morning. I am not available tomorrow, unfortunately, but I am today. Thank you.
Miriam Verji.
Good morning. Yes, I'm available today and tomorrow.
Cass Verji.
He's not here today.
He's not here today. Thank you. And Farhana Dali.
Morning, I'm only available today. Thank you.
Thank you. I assume everyone would be happy to take questions. Sorry, sir.
Sorry, my name is Imran Bhatia. I did register to speak as well.
Sorry, I hadn't received that. Sorry, I didn't quite catch it.
It's Imran, I-M-R-A-N,
Yeah.
Bhatia, B-H-A-T-I-A.
And same question?
Today, ideally, but tomorrow if required. Thank you.
Thank you.
So can I just say, although some of those who've indicated they wish to speak, they are all independent of us. For those who are known to us and are supporters, for you to assist you, we've compiled folders of their written, what they're supposed to read out, to save your pen, and also so that you've got them in one batch. So at some point we'll hand that up if that helps.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to accept that now. If the council, have you seen a copy of that?
So no, I haven't seen a copy. Obviously, we'd like to see a copy as soon as we can.
Yes, if you can share that with the council first,
Absolutely.
and then if we could come back to it.
Very much so. I mean, they are very much their statements. I've made that very clear. They are independent, but we've just coordinated the compilation of them for your benefit.
Fine. Well, if the council could take a look at it at the break, because we'll take interested parties after the first break, and then if you can pass that to Mr. Green now, please. Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak during the inquiry? No. Okay. You should not. Everyone should just note that if you do speak and give evidence or ask questions during the inquiry, your name will be listed on the decision letter, and I hope everyone's content with that. I've made a note of everyone's availability there. Obviously, we do have a degree of time constraints. I believe the letter said statements will be limited to around about 5 minutes. So I'd hope that we may be able to get through those who've indicated they can only be here today, but those who've said that they are available tomorrow. I'm likely to take it tomorrow, just because of constraints on time today, because obviously we are adjourning for a site visit this afternoon. Thank you. For certainty, for those who wish to speak, I have received the written evidence from interested parties submitted as part of the application and to the appeal. I have already read all of the written evidence and will take it into account when making my decision alongside the evidence I hear during the inquiry. As such, I don't need the full detail of the written evidence that you've previously provided to be read out, as it would not be an effective use of inquiry time. Rather, the focus should just be putting across any main points and arguments that you wish for me to consider, consistent with the advice on speaking notes around about 5 minutes that I just mentioned in the letter that was sent on the 24th of September. I also don't need to hear the same evidence twice during the inquiry. I already understand the strength of feeling of those who support and oppose the proposal subject to the appeal from the written evidence. If the main points of a number of interested parties wishing to speak are similar and cover the same ground and main points, you may wish to consider nominating a representative rather than repeating these same arguments. Okay, any specific queries on those points for interested parties? Like I said, we'll be taking the first of those after the first break, once my opening is complete and the openings from main parties. Okay, is anyone from the press present? Take silence as a no. Okay, and does anyone intend to film or record the event, or will it just be live streamed as per the arrangements? Okay. Okay, moving on to notification letters. I have a copy of the council's letters and notification of the appeal dated the 25th of September 2024, and a list of those notified, and a copy of the letter informing interested parties of the date, time and venue for the inquiry dated the 21st of November 2024, and a list of those notified. There's also evidence of a site notice at the site access point having been posted on the 28th of November 2024, informing interested parties of the date, time and venue for the inquiry. Are there any comments or points of clarification with respect to the process of notification before I move on? Okay. I think I've already referred to representation, so I'm not going to labour that point. I'm just going to take all representations into account, as well as what I hear today, and for the remainder of the inquiry. Right, just to clarify in terms of the case management conference call, a case management conference call took place on Friday, the 1st of November 2024, with representatives of the appellant, the council and Farnham Town Council present. It was held to discuss the procedure for the inquiry, and the merits of the appeal were not discussed. A copy of the case management call summary note is included on the inquiry website. In addition, on the 12th of December 2024, I emailed the parties and asked for a notice to be placed on the inquiry website to highlight that the government published a revised national planning policy framework. That's what Mr. Banner, I believe you were referring to, that you're helpfully going to compile something between yourself and Mr. Green to help me. The Framework 2024, amongst other things, was accompanied by a written ministerial statement and updates to planning practice guidance, taking account of the nature of changes to national policy, the proposal subject to this appeal. I have just invited participants to consider and address any matters arising from the publication of the framework, the written ministerial statement and updates to the planning practice guidance during the inquiry orally if possible, but noting that a note just to correct paragraph numbers, assuming there's no significant change, can be helpful as well. Are there any comments on that approach or any suggestions? Okay, turning to the relevant plans. For certainty, the plans upon which the council made its decision are identified in the core documents library as documents CD 1.1 to CD 1.10. Just to confirm, I've got that correct? Yeah. Revised plans have been submitted as part of the appeal in the form of a proposed location plan, site plan, existing and demolitions, a proposed site plan, proposed landscape plan, and indicative external levels plan, which are identified as documents CD 3.1 to CD 3.5. There are also associated updates to biodiversity net gain calculations, that's CD 3.6, and ecological impact assessment, that's CD 3.7. The proposed amendments are addressed in the statement of common ground as well, and that's CD 6.7, as agreed between the council and the appellant as minor changes. Again, I assume I've got all of those document references correct. And it's just to assist those during the inquiry. Those documents are available on the inquiry website, so you can see what the appellant suggested and what's been agreed between the appellant and the council. Just to summarise, the changes that have been agreed between the council and the appellant to be minor are the removal of the proposed church car parking, so that's 24 additional car parking spaces which did not serve the development proposed, relocation of a substation to the south of the access road, and relocation of 2 car parking spaces for mourners relating to the development itself. The statement of common ground also indicates agreement that the amendments have been consulted upon appropriately, so that any other party wishing to comment upon them has had the ability to do so. Nonetheless, the evidence of witnesses intends to address both the proposal as submitted and the proposed amendments at appeal. Is my understanding of that situation correct? And has anyone got any comments on the amendments at this particular stage?
So that is correct. My only comment is noting that the town council say the appellants provided no explanation for the changes and suggest that it's for my client's convenience. That's not right. To repeat, the reason for the changes is that in the officer report, the provision of the car park area for the church was not considered to be a factor of any positive weight. In light of that, given that it was seen to have a degree of impact, we thought that it was better to provide you with the option of eliminating something which appeared on the council's case to be net negative. And indeed, we note that Mr. Collett says in his proof that the changes are an improvement, albeit obviously they don't persuade him that we should succeed. So that's the reason. It's not for our convenience. It's that given that the case against us is that the inclusion of that area is overall provides more harm than it does benefit, we've removed it. And the other changes are consequent to that.
Thank you. And just to understand the appellant's position generally, the appellant wants me to consider those, assuming I can accept.
Yes, we do. I mean, yes, we do. To be clear, we don't say it makes a difference. Either version of the scheme we say is conspicuously permissible. But we're happy to have the one that has less impact for the reasons I've given.
Thank you. Any further points on the amendments? Obviously, it can be addressed in evidence during the inquiry as well. Okay, moving on to other documents. All documents and evidence should already have been provided unless I've specifically requested it. I've not invited any other late evidence. However, if any is intended to be submitted, please let me know. Obviously, we've discussed a few additional documents and things that have arisen quite close to the inquiry opening, and we're pending that consideration of those interested party notes after the break. Anything further from the parties that needs consideration at this stage?
Yes. Hard copies of the council's statement case and the evidence of Colette was not sent to the inspectorate. That was an oversight on my part. But I have hard copies here, sir.
Thank you. As long as the appellate's aware of it and are happy that it's a true copy. Thank you. Thank you very much. I won't accept that as an inquiry document because obviously it's just a hard copy of evidence that's already received and already in the core documents library.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to conditions. A list of suggested conditions, if the appeal were to be allowed, have been provided in the Statement of Common Ground. It has been confirmed that a planning obligation is not intended to be submitted as part of the appeal. Is my understanding in those both those respects correct? Okay, in the inquiry programme, there is a roundtable discussion identified for the suggested conditions. That's during week 2. Such discussions take place during most inquiries, irrespective of the outcome, and therefore should not be taken as an indication that I've made up my mind. To assist those discussions, if possible prior to the second week of the inquiry, I hope to provide some initial comments on the draft suggested conditions without prejudice to the outcome of the appeal, because generally find during inquiries that can be particularly helpful to scope down the areas of discussion to keep them particularly focused. Any specific comments on the procedures in that respect at this stage? Okay, just in terms of procedure, when I've concluded my opening remarks, I'll invite the appellant and the counsel to each make a brief opening statement, which should be no longer than 15 minutes. This will help everyone in the room to understand the main arguments that are going to be presented during the inquiry. Then after a short break, as mentioned, I'll hear from a number of the interested parties who could only attend today. And then, as agreed during the conference call, we'll move on in subsequent days to deal with the main issue through the formal presentation of evidence. So that'll start with evidence in terms of the council's witness. So the council's witness will deal with the main issues primarily that I've identified is the effect on the character and appearance of the area. But then there will also be evidence that's been presented by the appellant in terms of design, specifically landscape, highways and need on top of planning witnesses. It's necessary that I do hear that evidence because on the basis that if a planning balance needs to be applied, there's the possibility that obviously the main issues can potentially expand. My decision letter may be different to the main issue that's been previously identified in the case management conference and in advance of the inquiry. I've also been provided with an outline legal submission from Mr. Banner with respect to the Equality Act 2010 and the Public Sector Equality Duty. I haven't allocated any specific time in the draft inquiry programme for that. I just wonder how you wish to address that and at what point you were planning to do so.
I think
Mr.
I can do
Banner?
that as part of closing. I mean, to be clear, the relevance of the Equalities Act is it provides a statutory underpinning to the benefits of the appeal scheme, which increases the amount of weight that can be given to them. It's not a duty of outcome in the sense that the Equalities Act doesn't require particular conclusions, but it underscores the importance of particular factors. Just like, for example, the statutory duty in relation to heritage or the statutory duty into AO and B. It's akin to those considerations.
Rather than reserving it to closing, because obviously,
yes,
would it be helpful to maybe pick it up alongside the you need witness?
Absolutely. Whatever works better for you. It's
Yeah.
not something that comes up every day in planning inquiries, so I'm very happy to follow whatever process works best for you.
I think it may be worthwhile to potentially package it in
Yes.
to the evidence in chief from your planning witness if you want to give it after that.
Yes.
And then that would give the opportunity for cross-examination on need and any matters to be dealt with on the outlines.
As long as it means Mr. Green doesn't get to cross-examine me.
Well, obviously not, no.
Well, that raises the point, sir. It may be that Equality Act issues are better dealt with by way of legal submission, perhaps before or after the condition session.
Okay.
Then you'll have heard all the evidence.
I don't mind. I'm most helpful.
What I'll do is I'd like you just outside of the inquiry just to maybe discuss it between yourselves and agree at the appropriate time for the exchange of submissions. And if I can get a submission from both parties, that would be helpful.
Yes,
to understand the respective positions. Again, I'm not precious. It seemed to me that it may be dealt with around need, but it does seem sensible as well that it could come slightly there. I was a bit concerned. I didn't really want it as late, maybe as late as closings, but maybe after the last witness before conditions.
Or we could have a discussion. We can talk it outside the inquiry. It clearly has a relationship to need because it draws upon the evidence given in that respect, albeit it's legal submissions as to what the consequence of that evidence is. And as I say, what we say essentially, as much as the Heritage Listed Buildings Act gives particular weight to heritage considerations, and just as Section 85 of the Crow Act gives particular weight to AO and B considerations, so too does the Equalities Act to these kinds of, because that's the point in a nutshell. It may be there's not a huge amount between Mr. Green and me, but as with the other matters you discussed, we can speak outside the inquiry and come up with an action plan for you.
Yes, and if it needs separate legal submissions or a single agreed submission on that point, I'm open to either option. Having heard the suggestions, I'm inclined to take it after we've heard the evidence from all the witnesses, but before the condition session, because I think the condition session is obviously without prejudice session. So we'll deal with everything before we get to the without prejudice session, I think, on that. So just be prepared for that by week 2, really. Okay, thank you. Okay, now in terms of the draft inquiry programme itself, have the parties had the chance to review a copy of the draft inquiry programme and any comments on the approach? I did circulate it, and I'm not aware that there are any significant approach. I did try and account for witness availability as much as possible.
No, thank you, sir.
And timings as well.
It looks about right to me, and thank you very much, Steve, for the considerable thought that's gone into it. The only flag, and I think this might have been communicated to you anyway, is Mr. McLaughlin's actually coming on a family holiday. He's flying back in for his evidence session. He thinks he's subject to traffic and flight times, etc. He thinks he'll be here before 10 on Thursday. But if we were to run forward and finish need on Wednesday, which we may or may not do, he probably couldn't be here for 9:30.
That's absolutely fine. If necessary, we can take Ms. Ritson first. If we're ahead, and if we're slightly behind, well, that doesn't hugely. Obviously, we're going to try and stick to time as much as possible, but as you can see with the asterisk in there, there is a bit of potential for things to move, and that was obviously because of the interested parties. The number of interested party contributions was unknown at the time that it was drafted. So, but yes, I as long as the parties are happy with that, I've noted that from Mr. McLaughlin. So thank you. Any further comments before we move on? No. Right. Just in advance of the forthcoming inquiry discussions, just to confirm again, yeah, I've read all the representations together with the proofs of evidence and the agreed statement of common ground. Therefore, I would expect them largely to be taken as read, other than queries and points of clarification I may need to enable me to make my decision. As such, my own questions will be focused on the areas where I currently do not have sufficient information or understanding to make my decision, or which isn't drawn out through cross-examination, for example. Okay. Just to confirm, have the parties got a copy of the proofs of associated documents and access to them? Thank you. And for interested parties observing who may wish to follow these discussions and cross-refer to evidence, all the core documents are available on the council's inquiry website, and I hope that they can be updated as we add documents. If we can update that website as swiftly as possible, so people can keep up, those in the room and those who may be watching from home on the live stream. Okay, any questions on those points just before I move on to the conduct of the inquiry? Okay, I shall follow the procedure in the 2000 inquiry procedure rules. Just to let everyone know, inquiries are formal events, and therefore I expect all participants and attendees to be treated with courtesy and respect. To ensure the smooth running of the inquiry, all participants presenting evidence will be afforded the opportunity to be heard and make their case, and as such I will need to be able to focus on the arguments being made. It follows that any disruption or interruption from others will not be accepted. This extends to avoiding behaviour such as clapping, even if you agree with an argument raised. There may be occasions when I myself do intervene in the presentation of evidence in the interest of smooth running of the inquiry and to avoid repetition of points or answers already heard, and or to prevent unhelpful or irrelevant questions. Please do not take this personally, and understand that this is necessary just to ensure that the inquiry progresses in a timely manner and is assisting me in getting the information that I need to make my decision. Any queries on those points? Okay, just in terms of the running order, the inquiry is scheduled to last for up to 6 sitting days. That includes today, tomorrow, Thursday, and then a further 3 days from Tuesday, the 14th of January, 2025. We've discussed the draft timetable, so if anyone needs to review it, that's on the inquiry website. It will be updated. I'll update it if it needs to be, if there's any significant changes as a result to any timing issues. That'll probably occur. It'll be verbal updates, I'd guess, during this week, and there'll probably be an update for week 2 if we're not on track at that particular point, or things are going to take place in a different order. Okay, on conclusion of my opening remarks, I will invite the appellant, then the council, to make their opening submissions. I'll then hear from interested parties who wish to speak today after the break. It's then my intention today to conduct a formal accompanied site visit this afternoon. In that respect, an agreed route within and around the surroundings of the site, together with other important viewpoints for the site visit, were provided to me by the main parties on Monday, the 9th of December. And those take account of requests made by interested parties. Having reviewed those details and considered the constraint on the timing of sunset at this time of year, I'm mindful that it may not be reasonably possible to complete the entirety of the route and viewpoints today. As such, it's my intention to prioritise making my observations from the private land within private viewpoints within the site, and the request to view received from an occupant at number 6 Oosthouse Lane, whilst accompanied by a representative of the appellant and the council. Have the appellant and the council got a representative available for the site visit today?
Yes, we have. We'll probably have 4 people from different perspectives, but obviously we'll be careful that you're only hearing from one person at one time in terms of pointing things out. But there's client side, landscape, design and planning, all of which there are different aspects of things to point out.
Thank you. I think just for the request of you, we might just need one.
Yes.
Just so that don't overload
Understood.
the resident in terms of people entering the property. But for the visit itself, that's absolutely fine.
Yes.
Okay, and my intention is, because I'm not going to get around all the suggested viewpoints, is that I'll undertake further unaccompanied site visits to publicly available vantage points during the inquiry to make the remaining observations that have been requested. For certainty, subject to the agreement of the appellant as landowner, representatives of interested parties may be able to accompany the site visit. Would the appellant be happy with that?
Yes. Again, subject to, I think, the sort of no overload factor, essentially.
Yes. No, I understand for health and safety reasons, there has to be a limit on it, but it would be helpful if there was at least, if interested parties do want to attend.
Yes, I'm asked to flag up. There's no clear path around the site, so it's uneven ground. So there are some.
It needs someone would need suitable footwear if they were.
I think probably, and given also the kind of the sensitivities around it being a site, I think if there are third parties who want to come, perhaps we could just have a discussion in the break as to who they might be.
Okay.
Just so we can take instructions, because I'm conscious that it's a little bit different to your standard housing appeal in terms of the sensitivities.
No, I completely understand that. So it may be the case that if the interested parties are wishing to attend on the site visit, if they maybe approach you, at the break to discuss it.
We don't want to be churlish, but equally there are certain things that need to be respected.
No, I completely understand, and I will be guided by that. The only thing I said is for obviously a company site visit, if interested parties do want to observe, it can be helpful just so that the process is seen.
Absolutely. No, understood. We'll be as cooperative as we're able to be whilst respecting the sensitivities.
Thank you. Any specific questions on site visit at this stage? We will have a very brief discussion about it before we adjourn to the site visit, so we'll pick it up again. Thank you. On day 2, for the main issue and matters being dealt with by formal presentation of evidence, I will ask the council to present their evidence first so everyone can hear their objections to the proposal. The appellant's advocate will have the opportunity to cross-examine each of the council's witnesses, and the council's advocate may then put some questions in re-examination. There will then be an opportunity for questions from any interested parties intended to speak in support of the proposal, and I may also have some questions. I will then ask the appellant to present their evidence in the same way, i.e. the case, then the evidence, cross-examination, and then re-examination by the appellant. I will indicate it when interested parties who oppose the proposal will be able to ask questions of the appellant's witnesses. So there may be different times. Typically, interested parties who support don't get the opportunity to ask questions of on the same side, and vice versa, oppose on the same side. So I'll invite those questions in at the appropriate time. I will generally ask any questions I have before re-examination, but there may be occasion throughout the presentation of evidence where there are just points of clarification where it may be important that for my understanding, that I just ask. I do ask for the patience of the advocates in that regard. I will try not to interrupt the flow of cross-examination too much, but there may be occasions where I do need to catch a point or something before it's missed at that particular point. So I hope the advocates are happy with that approach. When all the formal evidence to be heard has been dealt with, I'll hear a discussion on conditions. We've already mentioned that. Again, just to stress, it's a standard procedure. Hasn't made up my mind. It's only for the benefit of the circumstance if the appeal were to succeed, to make sure that the conditions have been tested, and it happens whether the appeal succeeds or not. I'll then hear closing submissions from the council and the appellant. Just a reminder that written copies will need to be provided, and hopefully no longer than an hour, please. Yeah. Okay. Following closing submissions and pending any application for costs, I'll close the inquiry. I haven't received a costs application at the present time, but if any costs applications are to be made, this should be done before I close the inquiry. I also need to remind the parties that I have the power to initiate an award of costs whether or not any application has been made by the parties. Were I to do this, it will follow a written process with the relevant party after the appeal decision is issued. Any comments on that running order?
No, sir. I think I said at the CMC, we're keeping it under review. That remains the position. Bearing in mind the appellant's a charity, so if its trustees are not in a position to pull their punches if it's considered that an application is appropriate, but we'll keep that under review. We're not going to make one gratuitously.
Thank you, Mr. Banner. I've noted that position. It's the same position that was noted at the case management conference. So I assume you'll inform me whether or not it's the intention as due.
Yes, absolutely. I've no intention of providing any. If as may be the case, but may not be, we make an application. We'll let you know in good time for scheduling and let Mr. Green know so that it doesn't come as a surprise to him. And we obviously the fact that we've got Act 1 and Act 2 either side of the new year provides ample opportunity for that.
Thank you. Okay, please note that the running order is draft and we may overrun or things may take less time, and therefore it should be used as a guide only if you're intending to dip in or dip out of the inquiry. Also note that I may ask more questions of one participant or witness than the others. This does not indicate again that I've made up my mind. It's just to ensure that I understand all the evidence that is being presented to me. Typically, on each day, I plan to break for lunch around 1 o'clock, with short breaks in the morning and the afternoon. So there should, on a typical day, there should be up to 4 sessions on each day, aside from today, where we'll adjourn to the accompanied site visit around about lunchtime. It might be slightly earlier than 1 o'clock to give everyone the opportunity to get out to the site. I generally aim to finish around 5. Ideally not sit any later. And on subsequent days after today, I do intend to start at 9:30 rather than 10 o'clock. It makes sense to fit the presentation of evidence in, so the inquiry runs smoothly. I will keep all these timings under review as we progress. And if the advocates or any spokespeople think an adjournment's necessary, then please let me know. Okay, as well, please note the position of the witness table. This is where we'll hear from the various witnesses. So when I do invite interested parties up, if people can come and take. I think this in this round table one here. I'm assuming is this the one I'm happy with that being the witness table, or? Yeah. Yeah. I really don't. Yeah. For the sake of my neck, I don't want it to take place there. So. I'm happy with that. You and the advocates see it. It's obviously an issue about that would do so. But so no ideal solution for that. Yeah.
So the alternative is the end of the road.
Yeah. Yeah. But should we try it and see how it goes? I think we'll try this. We'll try this central table. If obviously if it's a witness that you're addressing, they can sit towards that side and vice versa, and the interested party can sit towards that side. Obviously, it's not ideal because sat with the back to the audience, but we have microphones, so and yeah, so they might be able to be on the screen. So maybe that's the solution. If we use the round table there, it's not perfect, but we'll make do with what we've got in those circumstances. Thank you. I've already addressed the main issue, so I'm not going to go into detail. The only amendment I mentioned, character appearances, including the area of great landscape value and the area of high landscape value and sensitivity. That was the wording that I hadn't included. So just for clarity, that's what we're considering. The manner within which any additional matters raised are dealt with in the eventual decision will depend upon the evidence that emerges during the inquiry. Has anyone got any further questions on identification of the main issue or anything in my opinion at this particular stage before I move on? Okay, well, thank you all, and that concludes my opening remarks. If there's no queries about the procedures or other matters before we start, in that case, may I ask the appellant's advocate to make a short opening statement, please?
So, as you've heard, sir, the appellant's a charity whose objective is the benefit of our Shia Ismaili Muslim community. The preparation of a body for burial, the ghusl, and the subsequent funeral, and then the burial and post-burial rituals are sacred and spiritual processes of fundamental significance to Ismailis' religion and culture. The Ismailis who live in the southeast of England currently don't have a single location where these processes can take place. Burials take place at the Ismaili cemetery in Brookwood in Woking, but that's reaching capacity. Further and fundamentally, there's no accompanying building where the body can be prepared. This has to be done off-site in third-party premises, which can vary in quality and location, meaning that the volunteers involved in the ghusl process, and you'll have read it's something done by volunteers, they have to travel to multiple locations, often in the middle of the night, given the timescales involved between death and burial. There's no accompanying building as well where the funeral service can take place. Due to the lack of appropriate facilities at Brookwood, the funeral services tend to be carried out in different parts of London and the surrounding areas before the coffin is transported to the cemetery, with members of the congregation travelling there separately by coach, minibus, or in their own cars. And there's also no building from where women who under Ismaili culture aren't able to be at the side of the grave during the burial, and for those who are too infirm to physically be able to do that, where they can observe the burial. Now, the appeal site already has an extant consent for burials. It's well located to serve the needs of the Ismaili community in the southeast region, and it lies within the landscape character area promisingly known as Cemetery Fields. And it's adjacent to another religious building where funerals take place, namely St John's Church, which has an accompanying graveyard. So against that background, the appellant commissioned Neil McLaughlin, MBE RA, the 2022 Sterling Prize winner and an architect of worldwide renown with distinguished experience of designing sacred buildings, to design a funeral pavilion here, which would provide the Ismaili community in this region with a single consolidated location where the ghusl, funeral, burial and post-burial rituals can all take place, dealing with the problems I've outlined above, finally enabling them to bid farewell to their loved ones in a satisfactory and fully dignified manner. The resulting appeal scheme is truly exceptional in the quality of its design, as was recognised in the officer's report recommending the grant of planning permission. For example, and these really are non-exhaustive examples, the agriculture-inspired form, and I invite you to look up page 13 of the DAS in your own time, sir, for this, and the natural external materials made from sustainable, locally derived sources wherever possible, take appropriate account of the site's context and enable the pavilion to blend into its woodlands setting. The building is sited in the lowest part of the appeal site, adjacent to existing and proposed tree belts, and its footprint amounts to less than 1.8% of the appeal site, around or possibly less than 0.4% of the landscape character area as a whole. The building is highly sustainable and its roof design facilitates natural ventilation. And the associated landscape design draws from the site's history, looking to past centuries where the site was more heavily populated with trees, and a range of native woodland species will be planted, amplifying the carbon sequestration potential, I always have difficulty with that word, of the site and the appeal scheme. Views from publicly accessible vantage points outside the site will be limited, filtered and well contained. And significantly, no harm is alleged to the settings of either listed church, and thus its dominance, or the Farnham Park Registered Park and Garden, nor to the AGLV's role as their buffer for the Surrey Hills AONB. And despite all of this, members of the Council's Planning Committee voted to reject the professional advice of their case officer and to refuse permission. Mr. Collett has been brought in as a hired gun to defend that refusal, although in places his evidence appears to stray beyond the stated reason for refusal. That's illegitimate given the terms of Article 35(1)(b), which I quote here and invite everyone to bear in mind during the course of this inquiry. Article 35(1)(b) of the DMPO, that where planning permission is refused, the decision notice must state clearly and precisely the Council's full reasons for refusal, specifying in all policies and proposals and development plan which are relevant to the decision. So the refusal notice we've got is intended to be and is a clear and precise statement of the Council's full reasons for refusal. They are what's set out there. We'll explore that in cross-examination. Anything that goes beyond that is illegitimate for the Council to advance before you without amending that reason for refusal. In any case, both Mr. Collett's and members' analysis is replete with deficiencies. This will be explored fully in cross-examination of Mr. Collett and in the evidence of the appellant's witnesses. So, sir, for those outline and deliberately brief reasons, as well as the fuller reasons in our evidence, and as we'll elaborate in the inquiry, we submit that the proper conclusion is the appeal scheme is in accordance with the development plan. If for some reason you were to find non-accordance with the development plan, there are nonetheless compelling material considerations in favour of granting planning permission, and we will accordingly, in due course, invite you to allow the appeal. So that's the opening statement on behalf of the appellant.
Thank you, Mr. Mann. Mr. Green?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Green. I'll accept that as inquiry document 4. When you're ready, Mr. Green.
Thank you, sir. This appeal concerns approximately 3.8 hectares of land, which I'm going to call the site, in the countryside between Farnham and Hale, to the east of Farnham Park. The bulk of the site has permission to be used as a woodland burial ground in accordance with the permission granted in 2010. Where development is proposed in the countryside, local plan policy RE1 requires that the intrinsic character and beauty of the countryside is recognised and safeguarded in accordance with the National Planning Policy Framework. The site also lies in an area of Great Landscape Value, or AGLV, which local plan policy RE3 requires is protected and enhanced as a priority, commensurate with its local landscape designation. In the Farnham Neighbourhood Plan, the site is within an area of high landscape value and sensitivity, where policy FNP 10 prohibits development unless it retains the landscape character and does not have a detrimental impact. Plainly, the site is part of a sensitive and valued landscape, as has been recognised in a number of appeal decisions. The proposed development consists of a large funeral ceremony building, car parking and access works, and landscaping. The building would be 9.1 metres above ground level, with a front elevation 42 metres wide and a side elevation 35.4 metres wide. The steeply pitched roof would be 6.6 metres from eaves to ridge, more than twice the height of the ground floor walls, which are 2.5 metres tall, and is proposed to extend 12.5 metres over the access road to the front. The building would have a gross external area of 461 square metres, a gross internal area of 382 square metres, and the combined capacity of all the rooms would be approximately 365 people. The maximum funeral attendance is said to be 181 people. The building would be significantly bigger than any other building in the vicinity. In addition, formal parking areas along the access way from Hale Road are proposed to accommodate 75 cars, and internal paths would be covered in tar and chip. None of this is characteristic of a countryside location. Although the intended use may be compatible with the extant 2010 permission, development on the scale proposed would inevitably harm the character and appearance of the site and wider landscape, even with a tree planting scheme to screen the building. It would not protect and enhance the landscape, as development plan policy requires, and in failing to respond appropriately to its surroundings, the building and ancillary works conflict with a number of design and development control policies as well. The appeal scheme does not accord with the development plan, and the starting point is that permission should be refused. The justification put forward for this development is that there is an unmet need within the Ismaili community for a purpose-built funeral building within the vicinity of the M25. A helpful needs statement of case has been provided by the appellant, which explains what functions the proposed building would serve and why these functions have a particular significance for Ismailis. However, neither this statement nor the proof of evidence that supports it explains why the proposed building is the size and scale it is, or why the appeal site was considered to be the most appropriate location. In short, the appellant has said why it seeks a dedicated funeral building, but not why a building of the scale and design proposed is needed here. While the Council recognises and accepts the appellant's sincere desire to provide a dedicated funeral building to serve Ismailis in the south east of England, this does not justify harmful development on the appeal site. With respect, therefore, the Council is opposed to this appeal.
Thank you, Mr. Green. That concludes the opening statements from the main parties. I think on that basis, and given the number of interested parties that wish to speak today, it would be sensible now to take a quick adjournment for a break. If we can return then, I'm going to adjourn, it's 10:58. If we can return at 11:15, and then we'll proceed to interested parties. Immediately on after the break, we'll deal with the interested parties compilation, if the advocates can discuss that during the break. Okay, the inquiry is adjourned 10:58, return 11:15. Thank you.
I'm going to clear this up. The 365 was a mistake, just to be clear.
No, again, there's no point on making it. Fine.
Yeah, but you never would say to move the way.
No, I appreciate that. No, I appreciate that, but I was just making the point that if you
Okay,
look at the capacity of each room,
Yes.
I appreciate the point, people can move from room to room.
Okay, right, okay, yes, all right, yes. Double counting again, okay. Yes. Yes, it says the 365.
Well, you can solve that. Okay. Well, it's well. Oh, so just one. Forgive me, forgive me.
Anybody else? Yes, let me just make sure. I mean, some evidence, okay, I'll be sorry. You'll alternate again. You finally see this option right.
Okay.
Yes.
Sure.
I'll address that. Just the reason we're raising is that people are on YouTube. The advice for problems, I think it's been okay. I'm sorry for self, it's not. Hello? Yeah, hello. Hello, hi. Yes. Yes, please. Correct, yes. Well, thank you very much. Yeah. Okay, see you at the weekend. That's okay, thank you very much.
Have all of our ways
Oh, shit, yeah. Harry, don't have time to come to suck it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, towards ours, just something. You know,
So you just let us know. Yeah, if not, I mean, to be fair, but yeah. You know, work. Because I think we talked about that before, and we were trying to get that covered. It's all right.
Robin, are you happy with those statements together? Yes.
Yeah, I get, I understand that. Like you say, the whole cascading through the life. I copied us in saying it's the change has been approved as a new document. It's not working.
Okay, it's 11:15, so we'll resume the inquiry. Just a housekeeping matter. It's just drawn to my attention during the break that some members of the public gallery were having difficulty hearing some of the discussions during the stage. Now, just a reminder, as much for me, that when we're talking, if we can just have the microphones off and speak into the microphone. I know I may have caused some of the issues as well, because when I'm making notes, I maybe don't sit quite as far forward, or occasionally didn't remember to press my microphone. So I'll make sure that I diligently do so. Can you hear me now as I speak in there? If there are any issues, please let me know. Do wish for you to be able to follow along, and obviously people at home. The alternative in the room is if the acoustics do prove difficulties, there is some available seating there where you are positioned a bit closer to where I may be speaking outwards from, and maybe be able to hear. Unfortunately, I can't raise my voice any higher because I am recovering from a heavy cold. So so I'll try and speak as much as possible into the microphone. Thank you.
So, and I think I'm probably the main culprit because my back's to everybody, but if I forget to put the microphone on at any stage, please do remind me.
Thank you. Okay, in terms of updates on the interested parties summary, did Mr. Green and Mr. Banner, did you have a chance to have a chat about it and have a chance to look at it, Mr. Green?
So yes, I've had a chance to read through them fairly quickly. I've got no objection to them going in. As I understand it, they reflect what's going to be said today and tomorrow.
Okay.
That's exactly right. I think I'm told the first one in the pack, Mr. Courage, might have a couple of stylistic amendments, but nothing. But he'll tell you what they are when he gives his speech.
Oh, okay, so happy for them to be accepted as inquiry document 5? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. As long as there's no procedural queries, then we'll proceed on to statements from interested parties. I presume interested parties will be happy to come forward and to this table and present their evidence there. I'm assuming the mics are hooked up there. Yeah. Okay. Taking account of what I asked in my opening in terms of people's availability, I will try and prioritise those who said that they will speak to. They were only available today, but I'll start with Mr. Tilbury from Farnham Town Council. There's water there if you need it, Mr. Tilbury. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. But just to confirm, Mr. Tilbury, I think you did send through a written statement through to our office. I believe that was shared with both of the main parties in advance of the inquiry.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll read that statement with a minor modification on the fly to pick up the point made by Mr. Banner this morning. The Town Council fully supports the reasons given for the refusal of this application as set out in Waverley's statement of case. Having regard to all of the evidence that has been and will be put before you, we ask you to dismiss the appeal. You will have read our written representation, which contains our detailed analysis. The main points to which we wish to draw your attention today are as follows. The proposed amendment. We understand your decision to consider the appeal on an either-or basis, which includes considering whether the appellant's proposed amendment should be accepted. As we set out in our written representation, we urge you not to do so. The appellant has provided an unsatisfactory explanation as to why it wishes to alter the scheme at the last moment. It has not acknowledged that to do so would cause material and substantial harm to an adjoining use, that being the future operation of St John's Church. The Church Authority has set out in its representation the implications of you accepting the amendment. Mere convenience or preference should not be used or accepted as a justification for modifying a scheme. And if a justification is to be given, it should have substance. The fact that there has been a last minute round of consultation does not shore up the appellant's case in that regard. I'd also point out, sir, that the...
Sorry, Mr. Tilbury, just one more. We're just getting...
Yeah,
Feed-
I thought it
feed-
might zoom in a bit more, but maybe not. As long as it's working all out. We worry about nothing.
Sorry, it was seemed to be getting feedback. Seems to have stopped now, Mr. Tilbury. So I'm sorry for the interruption. It's just it was slightly distracting in my ear. From,
I understand, sir.
concentrating. So if you could just roll back maybe 20 seconds and we'll go back. Thank you.
Convenience or preference should not be used or accepted as justification for modifying scheme at the late stage. And the fact that there has been a last minute round of consultation, which was also accompanied by no explanation of why the modification was proposed, does nothing to shore up the appellant's case. And just having regard to Mr. Banner's
Oh, I was going to speak to you about this. Really easy. Yeah. No.
last 30 years, given the resources the community has available. Public sector equality duty. It's well established by case law that discharging the public sector equality duty does not impose on an inspector any burden of responsibility to ensure that their decision promotes equality of opportunity. It requires you to have regard to the issues raised by the application and determine what weight, if any, to give to them. You will also take all of the countervailing factors into account, and in the planning system, those countervailing factors will properly include all of the relevant planning policies and other material considerations, which are, of course, the legally defined starting point for your decision. In conclusion, the appellant is the owner of the woodland burial site and may lawfully carry out funerals and interments in accordance with the existing planning consent, which was granted on the facts presented at the time and on that basis alone. The proposed building and associated works are not required for that use to be exercised. They are required because the appellant has acquired the site in the full knowledge of its consents and constraints and now wishes to remodel it in a way which was not envisaged when the consent was granted. What they propose to build is unacceptable for the reasons set out in the council statement of case and evidence, and we ask you to dismiss the appeal.
Thank you, Mr. Tilbury. Just to ask you, would you be happy to answer questions from Mr. Banner? Mr. Banner, any questions?
Yes, just a few. Mr. Tilbury, I'm assuming you're not a professional planner. You're speaking on behalf of the council in lay capacity.
I'm an associate member of the RTPI and operate as a planning
Associate
consultant advising town and parish councils largely on matters such as this one.
And are you giving, because you haven't provided an expert statement, so are you giving independent expert evidence in accordance with the RTPI code?
No, I'm presenting an interested party representation.
Exactly. Thank you. So you're not presenting expert evidence?
No.
Thank you. Now, Farnham Town Council, they appear at quite a lot of planning inquiries in Waverley, don't they? I think there's 4 in the bundles: Hawthorns, Monkton, the Farnham Park Hotel, and Compton Lane, I think.
Yes.
Do you have a sense, can you give me a sense, in the last, let's say, 5 years, roughly how many inquiries has the town council attended to your representation? I mean, in the board says 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15.
I don't know in detail. My understanding is that the town council takes a very active interest in planning matters. And I believe that representatives of the town council or persons sort of giving interested party statements will have participated in some way in most of those appeals.
Most planning appeals in relation, planning inquiry appeals in relation to development in Farnham.
I would imagine so, yes.
All the ones that I'm aware of in the core documents and indeed ones I've appeared in, the council spoke in opposition to development. Can you point me to any of the many appearances at planning inquiry appeals the town council has been involved in where it supported development?
I can't, and I don't think one would necessarily expect that to be the case. The town council is likely to be supporting a reason for refusal given its knowledge of planning policy and, of course, its own Farnham neighbourhood plan.
Thank you. Public sector equality duty, you say it's well established by case law that the PSED doesn't impose any burden of responsibility to ensure a decision promotes equality of opportunity. What case law do you have in mind?
I was thinking of Hossack and others and Southwark in the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court endorsed the comments of Lord Justice Dyson in Baker and Secretary of State previously. And I think that's not, I think it's widely accepted from that case law that the duty on the inspector is to have regard and to take it into account, the public sector duty into account as he proceeds in his decision making, not to rectify any wrongs that he might identify.
Okay, well, I'm not going to get into a legal debate.
Of course.
Unless you're telling me you're a lawyer too.
No, I don't.
Is it only Hossack or any other cases that you like the inspector to?
No, I will set my case there.
Right, thank you very much indeed. I think everything else is going to be covered by others, so thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Tilbury.
Thank you.
Councillor Powell, please. Whenever you're ready to start, Councillor Powell.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak at this appeal. My name is Catherine Powell and I am the Surrey County Councillor for Farnham North, where the appeal site is. I'm here as a local resident and as an elected representative for the local community with whom I work closely. As requested, those speaking asking you to dismiss this appeal have reduced the number of speakers, so I will focus my statement on the impacts on my residents and the wider local area if this appeal is granted, and why they are strong reasons for this appeal to be dismissed. The appellant says the land at Hale Road meets the Ismaili community's needs. What about the needs of the local community? As their elected representative, I know what they desperately need. A walking route from the top of Farnham Park along the northern edge of the appeal site to Hale Road. A car park for the largest community space in Hale, St John's Church. What they want is to retain the beautiful views of St John's Church from Farnham Park and of the Surrey Hills from residential properties on Oast House Lane. As set out in my October representation, much has changed since 2010, when the low-impact woodland burial part of the site received approval. Well, much has changed off-site, very little has changed on-site. The roads in Hale date back more than 150 years, and the listed buildings in the immediate vicinity of the site are really too close together for the number of motor vehicles already using the junction of Upper Hale Road, Farnborough Road and Hale Road. There is already a large community building at the junction, St John's Church. Although this building is currently underutilised due to parking and access constraints, this building has a capacity of 250 people. The concept of potentially concurrent use of St John's Church and the new proposed building with a capacity of 180 in this already very congested area is just unthinkable, given the very narrow access off Lower Road with no junction improvements at all on Hale Road. Please do visit the site and see for yourself. Ideally go at the end of the school day and watch the school children making their way home and ask yourself, is this really going to work? If you take a walk along the narrow pavements on Upper Hale Road and through the narrow section of Hale Road, it will be all too obvious why an alternative parallel route is required. The most direct route follows the contours of the land as shown on page 31 of my October representation. The appellant was asked to include this very much needed route, but responded saying that the route through the burial site is not feasible or desirable. The former is definitely not true. It is completely feasible, particularly adjacent to the northern fence line, as you will see from your site visit. I can assure you that local residents firmly believe it is desirable and indeed very much needed. If this route is lost, there are no viable alternatives and the local residents will be impacted forever. The appellant's response is in stark contrast to the approach taken when some of the site was approved as a woodland burial ground. The applicant at the time said public access to the land will be enhanced. Definitely one reason local people supported the currently approved plans. The proposals do not represent any benefit to the local community. I have a map of the postcodes of those who ask you to dismiss this appeal and those who have asked you to allow it. I can assure you the map does not support the use class that has been applied for, F2B, halls and meeting places for the principal use of the local community. These proposals are not for an all-inclusive community use like St John's Church, but for a single faith using the building with the site left locked and unused except during ceremonies. The nearest postcode for a supporter of the scheme is 40 miles away. Surrey County Council is trying to address climate change by introducing 20-minute neighbourhoods where residents can reach their essential needs on foot within a distance they are comfortable and willing to travel. I have worked hard to support this, but the proposals covered by the appeal will block these efforts, and rather than supporting taking cars off the road, will actually add traffic to an already congested area. Please dismiss this appeal. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Powell. Would you be happy to answer questions from Mr. Banner? Mr. Banner?
So just a few short questions. Councillor Powell, you referred to impact on views and the AONB. I just wanted to check, have you read Catherine Ritson's proof of evidence and appendices?
I have, sir.
Thank you. Do you have any qualifications akin to Ms Ritson's in terms of landscape appraisal?
I don't, sir, but I do live in the area and I do use the footpath with the views from St John's Church almost every day. And I look forward to the leaves falling and being able to see the beautiful church that my children define as the Cinderella Tower.
You referred to your desire for walking routes through the proposed development and the site. Can you point to any specific development plan policy that mandates that?
So currently the Farnham LC Whip is a document that exists and has been published. It was issued in June 2023. And there is an amendment that has been agreed by all three councils that is going through the process at the moment. And the number one route that the people of Farnham wanted includes that route. And there is evidence of that in my document, and it is referred to by the Surrey Highways response to this appeal.
A question about development plan, because that's what Section 38, subsection 6 of the Planning and Compulsory Purchase Act puts on a statutory footing. Is there any development plan policy that you say requires that?
Currently, sir, there is not. However, as you will well know, the local plan for Waverley is currently out of date, and that route was submitted as part of the call for sites because of the integral and absolutely necessary nature of that route, because there is no alternative route that could be provided to allow children to safely walk and cycle from Upper Hale to Webburn, which is something we as a community are absolutely committed to.
You referred on a number of occasions to local residents, the views, the desires of local residents, the straw poll that you've done, etc. And it's like you're the group leader of the Residents Association independent group, aren't you, on the council? Part of Farnham Residents.
I am a member of the Farnham Residents Group.
Yes.
And I am the leader of the Residents Association, an independent group at Surrey County Council. So I am the leader of the opposition.
And the Farnham Residents Group, their website says in relation to planning, their objective is to stop what they describe as inappropriate developments forced upon the town by predatory developers. Is that how you see most development proposals in Farnham?
All the development proposals that are in line with the Farnham Neighbourhood Plan, I work hard to support and work hard to ensure they support the local neighbourhood in the appropriate way. If a development comes forward that is outside the neighbourhood plan that was voted for by the people of Farnham, then, sir, I will oppose it unless I think it's appropriate development.
Do you see my clients as predatory developers?
I see your clients as people who desperately want a building, and a building that they want for their religion, which I completely understand, but it's not the right place for that building, and it's not the right place for the additional traffic that will come with that building. And I am extremely worried about the number of road traffic accidents I have with children in my division today. And I have no desire to see more traffic at the junction, which is most impacted by that.
Is it your view that planning permission should only be granted if it's supported by local residents?
No, sir. I've
Right.
worked in the planning area long enough to recognise that that's not the case. But equally, it is a case of what the planning policy says, but also this site in the neighbourhood plan is a SANG, and we also have a shortage of SANG. So there are many reasons why this site should have alternative use.
You're aware that the SANG permission has lapsed?
I'm aware of the fact that the SANG permission has lapsed and that the 2010 permission is considered to have commenced, even though not a single body has been buried on that site to any local residents' knowledge.
And there's no proposals that the council has to compulsory purchase the site, which is in private ownership. That's right, is it?
There is currently a feasibility study underway looking at the route through the site, and I had hoped it would be available for this planning appeal, but for various reasons, including a general election being called in May, which created a 3-month delay on alignment, it's not yet available, but it will be by January.
The question was, there's no proposals for the council to seek to acquire compulsorily this private land to force upon the owner what you desire to happen on the site.
The feasibility,
is that right?
The feasibility study will include the
Right.
purchase of the land.
Right. You're aware that compulsory purchase requires a compelling case in the public interest?
There is a compelling case in the public interest on the basis of safety for children going to schools.
Same question I asked the town council. Can you just give me, by way of a flavour, I don't need an exact number, how many planning appeal inquiries do you think you've attended since being elected? And of those, how many did you support development?
If a development is in my division and it's outside the Farnham neighbourhood plan and it's not consistent with the policies in the neighbourhood plan, as the elected representative, I have opposed.
Could
And
you
I
answer
have
the question,
spoken
please?
at those appeals.
Could you answer the question, please? Order of magnitude.
8.
8. And how many of those 8 have you supported development?
All of them were outside the neighbourhood plan, so all of them I have spoken
Right, so
against.
100% track record of opposing development at planning inquiry appeals. Is that right?
But I've also supported applications that have not had to go to appeal because they've been in alignment with the neighbourhood plan.
I'm instructed that there was a public consultation on the application to which all councillors, including yourself, were invited. And instead of taking up that invitation and hearing about, engaging with that consultation, you led a protest outside the consultation. Is that right?
I had all the information I already needed and had already seen what had gone on.
So it is right.
And we had already had conversations, other members of the community had had conversations. I do talk to my residents on a very regular basis. And I talk to them on a very regular basis because I want to understand their views. And in understanding their views, if they want to oppose something and I think they're right, then I will oppose with them. And I did attend the protest. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Those are the questions I've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Powell. Thank you. Can I ask Nafisa Herji, please? Would you be okay to sit on this side of the table? Because if Mr. Green's got any questions, thank you. When you're ready, Miss Herji.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nafisa Hirji, and I am an osteopath by profession. What I will be sharing today is very sacred and indeed a private matter. It is one which I am deeply uncomfortable to even talk about due to its sensitive nature. However, I am here today because I feel very strongly towards having a dedicated, permanent space for a practice that holds tremendous meaning for myself and my community. For nearly 25 years, I have had the honor and privilege of volunteering together with a small dedicated team to carry out a deeply meaningful tradition, the tradition of cleansing and preparing the body of the deceased before it is laid to rest. Each time there is a funeral, a dedicated team of 3 to 4 volunteers travel within London and the wider region to a designated place to perform this service. You may be surprised to learn that this work is usually carried out in the very early hours of the morning, typically between 3 and 5 a.m. This time frame allows for our dedicated team to return home in time to get on with their daily responsibilities. Currently, the premises we go to lack the simple basic amenities. We do not have a great deal of choice in the places we can go to, as these places are highly dependent on availability. Sometimes, we even have to travel to 2 different venues in the same night. We are all too aware of the risks that come with being a woman traveling alone on the streets of London in the dead of the night. I am sure you will understand that this in itself poses many challenges. My team members and I are always on high alert, trying to avoid potential risks. At present, it would be sufficient to say that our service operates as a mobile washing unit, moving from one place to another in the odd hours of the night. This is inconvenient, it is unsettling, and most importantly, it is unsafe. All we are seeking here is for approval for a space, not a mortuary, just a space. A space to carry out the dignified process of cleansing and preparing the body using only safe materials, primarily just soap and Dettol diluted in water. I am sure you will all agree that a beautiful and humbling service of this nature is most deserving of a simple and permanent space. Having this dedicated space will make a world of difference for us. It will allow us to continue this sacred tradition in a safe, secure, and respectful environment. I sincerely thank you all for considering our request. We are committed to working closely with the Farnham community to ensure that this project is managed with the utmost care and transparency. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hergy. Would you be happy to answer questions from Mr. Green if he has any? Mr. Green?
Thank you, sir. Is it Miss Hergy, Mrs. Hergy, Ms. Hergy?
Ms.
Ms. Thank you very much. Ms. Hergy, you describe the work that you do, the preparatory works. You say that you travel within London and the wider region. And I'd just like to get an idea of the sort of geographical spread of the work that you do. So how far afield do you go?
Well, we have volunteers that come from Purley, Croydon. We have some that come from Southgate, from Finchley, so quite spread out.
So all over London?
All over London.
And beyond London, beyond the M25?
Well, if we take Purley within the M25, just on the outskirts.
Okay. And am I right in thinking that there are a number of places at the moment where these preparatory rituals take place?
Yes.
Sorry, there's terrible feedback. Do you know how?
Yes. I think what we may need to do is question microphone off, answer microphone on. I think to avoid the feedback.
How many different places do you go to, say, in a year to perform these preparatory works?
Around 5 to 6 different places.
And are they also spread across London?
Yes.
If this facility were permitted and built, that wouldn't oblige members of the Ismaili community to use it. They could still use the facilities that are closer to them, couldn't they?
I think what it would do is it would allow us to have one place. So like I mentioned earlier, at present, we consider ourselves in a situation where like a mobile washing unit. So if we had a dedicated space here, then we would obviously try and use this dedicated space. One place, a permanent place. So we're not moving around different locations.
Yes, but the choice is between having a single space for preparation where families and mourners all have to go, depending on where they live, or having multiple places for the preparation to take place where families and mourners can go. If this facility were built and operated, families could, if they choose, go to a place that was, say, closer to them.
I think earlier on it was mentioned that this place was where we would hold the community funerals. So at present, even the places that we are holding the funerals are at different locations. This makes it extremely difficult because we need to go in the early hours of the morning to do our work, and then the body then has to be transported in the hearse to the place, to the cemetery. So what the proposal here is, if this is where the cemetery would be, this is where the washing area would be, and it will all be like a one-stop shop. Really, we can don't need all the volunteers to go around London in the middle of the night. It could all be done here at a decent hour.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Ms. Hershey.
So to flag up, in case any misunderstanding, the different processes and who's involved in them set out in our need evidence as well. It's not actually the families who do the ghusl. It's volunteers. The families attend the funeral, which is a separate stage of the process.
Thank you, noted. Thank you.
So that no offence is caused by mischaracterising the process.
Thank you. Can I please Naguib Kirai? Whenever you're ready, Mr. Kirai.
Thank you and good morning. I'd like to start by saying how pleased I am this important matter will be considered objectively on the basis of facts and policy by an independent expert. My name is Naguib Keraj. I'm an interested member of the public and belong to the Ismaili community. I participated in the decision to purchase this site and in the selection of the architect. I'm also a donor to the Ismaili Trust. My career background is in banking, and I'm a former finance director of Barclays Bank. I spend half my time on charitable work and have held board roles in major national and international institutions, as well as public bodies in the UK over the past 30 years. I'm a senior advisor to His Highness the Aga Khan and serve on boards across the Aga Khan Development Network and the Ismaili community. I've been involved in dozens of construction and development projects, including schools, hospitals, universities, housing, community centres, and parks in many countries, including in the UK. Our projects share a common thread: the highest design and aesthetic standards, the use of natural materials, sensitivity and respect for the local surroundings, attention to environmental impact, and appropriate surrounding vegetation. For this project, we selected an outstanding architect who's a Royal Academician and a Stirling Prize winner. The brief was to design something of modest scale, which is sensitive and respectful to its environment. The Ismaili Cemetery currently in use in Brookwood is running out of capacity. We therefore have a clear need for burial facilities. There's a chronic shortage of viable sites in terms of planning for burial use in the Greater London and surrounding areas, with sufficient capacity and which are affordable. This site does have permission for burial use and is affordable. Finances are relevant as the Ismaili Trust is a community-funded charity and the trustees have a fiduciary responsibility. For the site to function effectively, there is a need for some form of structure on the property to provide shelter and washroom facilities for mourners and a dignified space to administer final funeral rites. The proposed building would fulfill those functions, be nestled among trees, and be barely visible from the boundaries of the site. I attend about 5 Ismaili funerals a year, so I'm familiar with the arrangements. The current arrangements involve 4 separate journeys, which take up to 4.5 hours, for ceremonies which themselves take about 2 hours in total. The whole process is time-consuming, inefficient, and environmentally unfriendly. The multiple journeys also mean that some members of the community are excluded. What's being proposed here would be significantly more efficient and inclusive. If we're allowed to proceed with this project, I can assure you that we will have a minimal impact on our neighbours and will maintain the site in a manner which is in keeping with its natural scenic beauty. Thank you for this opportunity to be heard.
Thank you, Mr. Courage. Would you be happy to take questions from Mr. Green if he has any? Mr. Green?
Thank you, sir. Just a few questions. First of all, I want to get the pronunciation correct. Is it Ismaili or Ismaili, or does it not matter?
You can pronounce it how you like. We pronounce it Ismaili.
Ismaili, thank you very much. You say that you were party to the decision to purchase the site itself. And as I understand it, the principal driver of that was that you needed more cemetery space.
Correct. We're running out of space and we spent many, many years looking for future sites within the M25 area.
At the time the site was acquired, were you aware that it was in an area of great landscape value?
Yes, I visited the site and I'm aware that it had permission for woodland burial use, and I inquired as to what that actually meant and whether that was something that we could accommodate or work with.
The permission for woodland burials has a condition prohibiting headstones, features like that. Were you aware of that?
I was aware of that.
And that would still accord with your needs, would it?
Well, I think there's different ways of marking a grave. So I recall the discussion at the time we made the decision about the ability potentially to put some small marker on the ground that's not visible as a protruding item or a certain minimum number of inches, and had a discussion about that at the time. But I'm not an expert on those things.
At what point was it decided to pursue a funeral ceremony building on the site?
Around the time that we purchased the site, there was a discussion about how would you practically be able to use the site, because in inclement weather with older people, it would be quite difficult if there were no facilities on the site at all. And I think the advice that we had at the time was that some modest scale building would be ancillary to the main purpose of the site and should be permissible.
You say some modest scale building. Had any thought been given to what that actually entailed?
Yeah, there was an architectural competition with a brief, so of course we paid attention to what we may develop.
What we're trying to understand is why this building, why this scale of building? Did the design brief given to the architect specify how many people it should accommodate, how big it should be, whether it should make a statement, that sort of thing?
Approximately. I mean, I think there's a range of potential outcomes, and I think there was a lot of work done after the architectural competition to finalize the brief and the design that I wasn't involved in. I was involved in the choice of the architect.
And did you have any discussions with the council as to what might be acceptable?
Me personally, no, but my colleagues who've been handling the project have consulted very, very extensively on this matter, as we do in all of the projects we do in any part of the world that we operate. When we build, we do consult with local authorities, we consult with local residents, we pay great attention to those things.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Karaj. Please can I have Farnham Dala next, please? Is it Ms. or Ms. Miss? Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Farhana Dala. I was born in and have lived in the UK all my life. I graduated from the University of Southampton, and I now work for an international firm as a marketing manager. Parallel to my student and professional life, I became involved in the community's activities at a relatively early age. I instinctively picked up the notion of service from my father, who, like many others, have a long history of following in the footsteps of their forefathers in serving. What strikes me most when I hear stories about my forefathers is how they pivoted to accommodate a changing world. How the old ideas of yesterday were adapted to reflect the reality of today's world and in anticipation of the next generation. How their work benefited not only members of our own community, but it also had a positive impact on other communities. That concept of pluralism is the concept that I was brought up with. The richness of diversity, of inclusion, of belonging to a wider ambition. My father came to the UK from Kenya 50 years ago. His generation had a greater focus on religion, and their lives were far more structured around practicing their faith and rituals than many of my generation. I, on the other hand, grew up immersed in British culture. attending our local Catholic school, participating in a wide range of multicultural activities, and building strong connections within our local community. I am proud to call this country my home, one that respects the principles of fairness, equality, and inclusivity. My generation has different pressures to that of my father's generation. He owned his own business and so was able to flexibly apply his time to attend funerals and then travel to a burial site. My generation is more time poor. The demands of full-time employment, the need to look after our mental health, and growing financial pressures are different. We are far more likely to have professional careers, so attending funerals can be challenging, as we not only attend the funeral itself, but then wait for the remainder of the process to be completed at another location. This is compounded by the fast-paced nature of modern life, which leaves little room for reflection and spiritual growth. Having this facility will make these life events easier on so many levels. For example, it will allow us to focus on the funeral and the process of grieving itself, rather than having to organise so many different activities in different locations. Coming to a single venue will mean we don't have to think about how to get across London to attend a funeral alongside other commitments of daily life, and we can take full advantage and comfort in the communal prayers. Those here who work on projects like this are truly supporting future generations to practice this rite of passage far more easily, and will be helping to safeguard these essential parts of our faith. Funerals in the Ismaili community are a community activity, and this facility is essential for preserving long-standing practices. No matter what our age, grieving together as a community is something very supportive and should not be lost in modern busy lives, where work gets more focused and traditions become harder to maintain. It really is important to acknowledge these difficulties and find ways to support and encourage my generation along their spiritual journeys. I welcome the opportunity to be able to practice my faith, including attending and participating in funerals with more ease than currently is the case, because if it is easy, it will survive for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you happy to take questions from Mr. Green?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Green? No questions. Okay. Thank you very much. Please, can I have Imran Bhatia, please? Whenever you're ready, Mr. Bhatia.
Good afternoon. My name is Imran Bhatia. I was born in and have lived in this country all my life. Today I work as the lawyer to a leading European hospitality company. I also utilise my legal experience and expertise in a voluntary capacity within the Ismaili community, serving on our legal committee, which supports both individuals within the community and their families, as well as other volunteer teams, committees and institutions. I also serve as Vice Chair to the Board of Trustees of Focus Humanitarian Assistance, a charity with a mandate to support those affected by natural and man-made disasters. I am proud of my culture and my heritage, and in particular that it places a focus on helping and using knowledge and time to support both our own community's members, as well as those living within the societies in which they live. I'm also proud to be born in Britain and to be a British citizen. I have attended school and university in this country, worked my entire professional career in this country, and, as I do within the Ismaili community, I've always looked to direct my knowledge and time towards charities and initiatives that serve society as a whole. I have never seen or felt an incongruence between these two aspects of my life, and in fact I am proud of how well they dovetail. 2.5 months ago, I married my wife, who is British and not from the Ismaili community. And 2 months later, just a couple of weeks ago, I buried my mother. I once read that losing your mother is such a difficult loss because it is the first personal tragedy you have to deal with without being able to call upon her love and support. and I'm still very much on the road of dealing with this. But the comfort and support and kindness that we as a family receive from volunteers within our community, even as someone myself who regularly volunteers within it, truly blew my mind. This was a sentiment echoed by the non-Ismaili friends and members of my wife's family who attended the funeral, and in many cases were experiencing our community for the first time. My mother passed on a Friday night. That same night, I was able to phone someone who would go on to orchestrate the whole funeral process for us. He explained exactly what I would need to do on Monday morning, being the earliest point at which the necessary doctor certifications and paperwork could start moving, to be able to hold a funeral on Thursday, which to me felt an impossibly short time period at that time. I had the good fortune to manage to shepherd the paperwork to the registry office by Monday lunchtime and to book an appointment with the registrar to collect the death and burial certificate on Monday afternoon. I sent them to the volunteer in question as I left the registry office, and by the time I had driven home, the funeral was confirmed for Thursday morning. I still do not even know who the external funeral directors were. So seamless and complete was the coverage by our dedicated and compassionate volunteers. So having recently gone through this process, I do believe that this proposed scheme would make the process even kinder on the family and the volunteers. In deciding which of our community spaces to hold prayers in prior to burial, you as the organising member of the family are juggling the logistics of which family members, who may be old or infirm or have small children, will be inconvenienced by the choice of location. This can end up becoming a sensitive and charged decision, causing disagreement or upset at an already difficult time, as certain family members may feel less considered or taken into account. Then there are the logistical and environmental considerations of how to transport certain people, families, friends, volunteers to the cemetery from the prayer space and back again. And in our case, that was an hour-and-a-half journey each way, in various cars and a coach. Those attending the burial then need to factor in how to collect members of their family who have not attended the burial if they all left home and started the day together in one car. Having the entire process conducted in one neutral, accessible, known space where all can feel and be a part of it equally would have certainly made the funeral process more cohesive and joined up, easing the logistical burden and removing those potentially sensitive decisions from having to be taken, allowing the family and volunteers to concentrate on what is most important on that day. I also think about if I were to pass away and the possibility of my non-Ismaili wife being able to organise my own funeral in a single known location, in a non-religious, more neutral setting, but still in keeping with our traditions, and being able to view my burial from this single location, as opposed to my body being transported away from her for burial. This truly feels kinder to the bereaved family and the fantastic volunteers who support them at the toughest of times, and to me truly feels like a way of continuing what we and I have always looked to do in my own life, integrating our culture and traditions into British life in a discreet, non-invasive, inclusive, cohesive and respectful manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bhatia, and I apologise, I had a bit of a coughing fit, but I was listening. Would you be happy to take questions from Mr. Green? Of course. No questions? Thank you, Mr. Bhatia. Right, I believe we've got through all interested parties that said that they could only attend today. Yes, sorry, sir. Okay, sorry, what was your? Okay, let me just check. Okay, Mr. Nanji, we'll take you now, please.
Thank you for accommodating me.
Thank you, Mr. Nanji. Sorry, I had you on my list. I just skipped over you by mistake. So
No problem.
whenever you're ready.
Thank you. My name is Shires Nanji, and I'm both a business owner and resident in Surrey. My wife and I have lived in the area since we got married several years ago. My wife works for the NHS, and my daughters attend a local primary school. I've lived in England my whole life, as has my wife and my children. I own and manage a multi-site franchise business across several counties, including Surrey. I was born and grew up in Hastings, where I first learned the importance of being part of a community, not just a faith-based community, but the wider society in which we all live. Community has been an integral part of my life. As a young person, I served on a steering group that established Hastings' first Young Persons Council, which I later chaired. Today, I give back as a trustee of the PrEP Foundation and through my involvement in various local and global initiatives. My upbringing as being part of the Ismaili community has given me the foundations on which I can contribute my knowledge and skills to the wider society and my local community. I live in Surrey with my wife and my 2 young daughters. I also have a sister, a mother, several aunties, and an extended family through my wife. Why am I telling you all of this, and why is any of this relevant to today's hearing? The proposed facility represents a critical step forward for my family, for my faith, and for the wider Ismaili community. Let me share a personal story to illustrate why. Over 10 years ago, my wife experienced the profound loss of a very close family member to cancer at the age of 31. In keeping with our religion, women of any faith are not permitted to attend the graveside ceremonies and usually attend the day after the burial with close family members to pay their respects. This absence during the burial process weighed heavily on my wife, leaving her with a profound sense of unfinished grieving that she still carries to this day. It is something we often discuss, and it is her hope and mine that our daughters will grow up in a community where they can participate fully in moments of such importance. The facility in Farnham would allow a more inclusive way to grieve. It has been thoughtfully designed to provide women, the elderly, and those with accessibility needs a way to be present during the burial ceremonies while respecting the traditions of our faith. The rear glass wall overlooking the burial grounds will give them the opportunity to reflect, to mourn, and to feel connected in a way that just currently is not possible. For my wife, for my daughters, for my mother, and for so many others, this is a meaningful step forward. Traditionally, like with all faiths, people have had blind faith, follow the rules unquestionably. Our lives are very different now. We are fully aware of the need to protect our mental health, and so in our desire to be inclusive, we encourage people of all ages to question, to understand, and to increase their knowledge. The presence of this building is essential to include all of our loved ones in this rite of passage. Our funerals are not only attended by Ismailis, but also by our friends and our interfaith families who share in our moments of grief and loss. I am aware that 50% of our marriages are now in our community are now interfaith, and we strive to integrate and welcome everyone while maintaining our values and traditions that give our faith its meaning. Most importantly, it is about providing a space for our family and our friends to grieve together in an inclusive way. This project matters to my family. It matters to me because it reflects the kind of society we want to live in, one that values inclusion, respects diversity, and provides spaces for all people to find peace and closure. Thank you for listening, and thank you for considering the importance of this project.
Thank you, Mr. Nanji. Would you be happy to take any questions from Mr. Green if you have any?
I would.
Mr. Green?
Thank you. So just on one matter, Mr. Nanji, I approach this with complete ignorance, so forgive me. You say that as part of the faith, there is a requirement that women should not attend the graveside burial itself. But you say that what's proposed here, I think, incorporates a glass wall so they could observe without being present. Am I right in that?
That's correct.
Is the requirement that there be a certain distance between the women and the burial ceremony, or must there be some physical barrier?
I am speaking from total personal experience here. I am not an authority on this matter, and some of the blind faith I talk about I've grown up with. So from the understanding I've grown up with is that they are not allowed to be at the graveside itself. So when speaking to my wife about this, because she's the reason I am here today, is for her it's that she would have the opportunity to see that closure take place, and something that's been a gap in her life.
I completely understand that. I'm just trying to understand what are the requirements, and is the requirement that women should be some distance away, or that they should be physically separated in some way?
So from my understanding, it's not, there are no arbitrary distances, but I am not an authority to be able to explain or give you the exact understanding. From what I understand is this glass wall provides a physical barrier, but it's not a barrier for her to experience that closure that she's been yearning.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Just as a point, I think, just as a point of clarification on that, and just to assist my understanding, I think what Mr. Green might have been getting at is that the physical barrier would that meet the cultural requirements effectively. So yes, that was the question I had from the questions.
I think from my opinion only, I think the barrier meets two things. It meets the need for us to respect the Islamic principles of them not being present. However, it's a way and opportunity for them to see that closure take place.
Thank you. That was helpful. It just needed that little bit of clarification on that. Thank you very much, Ms. Nanji. I think we may have, before we have a short discussion on site visits, I think we may have time for one more interested party. So I'll have a quick look down the list in the order that made the requests.
The only one from our pack that hasn't spoken is Mariam Verji, who's here.
Okay, well, if that's the case, is it Ms. Verji? Miss Verji?
Then after that, so everybody in that pack of material that I provided to you has spoken, so you've got all those transcripts.
Thank you, Mr. Banner. And anyone who hasn't had the opportunity to speak, who said they were available tomorrow, it'll be first thing that we will be taking the additional interested party comments. Miss Verji, when you're ready. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Mariam Verji, and I have lived in England for the last 64 years. I'm an Ismaili Muslim and was at school for clergymen's daughters in Brighton and subsequently at university for further education. In 1986, we purchased the Bishop's Table Hotel on West Street, Farnham. At that time, it was a struggling business in need of significant care and management. However, we saw the potential, both in the business and in Farnham itself, and were determined to make this a success, not just financially, but in a way that respected and reflected the values of the local community we had chosen to join. We worked tirelessly to restore the hotel, transforming it into a thriving enterprise that brought accolades and visitors to Farnham. Our success was not just measured by profits, but by the relationship we built and the impact we had on the town. My brother served as a local councillor, and our family became deeply involved in civic life. We supported local schools, charities and events, always striving to contribute meaningfully to the town's growth and well-being. Farnham quickly became more than just a place we lived in. It became home, Over the decades, we have remained connected to Farnham. Just last month, our daughter celebrated her wedding at Farnham Castle, and her guests stayed at the Bush Hotel. Our visitors not only enjoyed the town, but were only too eager to shop and use the restaurants. Our values are grounded in faith, education, and service. Encouraged and guided by His Highness the Aga Khan, the Ismaili community is well organized. We believe in contributing to the local community through care, effort, and a shared vision of excellence. These principles have guided us in preserving and celebrating public spaces, heritage and culture, and encouraging economic vitality in the areas where we live. The proposal for the Ismaili burial ground is important. It is an extension of these shared values, a space that provides dignity, inclusion, and respect for all. It would serve as a lasting legacy for families, offering a place of reflection, connection, and remembrance. The building design is well thought out and keeping with our shared values and aesthetically pleasing, enhancing the visual appearance of the area and contributing to a positive cultural pluralism. For generations, Farnham has embraced its past while building its future. The Ismaili community burial ground would ensure that we continue to honor those who have come before us, while providing a meaningful space for those who will come later. Thank you for your time and for considering this important initiative, which I believe will strengthen the bonds we share as humankind and serve as a testament to Farnham's enduring spirit. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Virgie. Would you be happy to take questions from Mr. Green if he has any? Thank you. Mr. Green?
Well, Ms. Virgie, obviously we disagree about the merits of the building, but I'm going to ask Mr. Collette to deal with that. I'm not going to ask you any questions. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Right, thank everyone for the contributions this morning. I'm conscious we're getting to around about the time that we're going to need to be discussing the site visit to give everyone enough time to get there if we're hoping to meet at 1:45. The first question returning to discussion in terms of access onto the site. Did you have the opportunity to discuss with any interested parties?
I did, sir, yes. Three interested parties have asked to come on the site visit, and we can accommodate that. So that's all now resolved, I think.
Can I ask for the names? Not necessarily from you, Mr. Banner, just if those, just so that I'm aware. So when I get there, I can be conscious of who we're waiting for.
Councillor Powell, and there were two others whose names I didn't actually get, but another councillor representing the church.
I was one, Dave Walter, the church representative.
And Jenny de Kervan from Farnham Town Council. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch your surname.
It's de Kervan, D-E, separate word, Q-U-E-R-V-A-I-N. Thank you.
Thank you. And then in terms of the visit, the plan for the visit today was to meet on the car park by the restaurant, so and entering the site, assuming there'll be enough space for everyone to park there. If we can meet there at 1:45, the intention then will be to for me to be guided around the site along the route that's previously been provided, so that I can observe from public vantage points. I hope the parties are happy that I take photographs, because I usually use those for aid memoir, but I understand culturally, and I have to ask that question. Yes. Obviously, if there's anything anything on the site that's sensitive that people don't want me to take photographs, then please let me know. Once we've completed the site visit on the site, the intention then would be to the request of you. So that's, I think it's Parkland 6 Osthouse Lane, Parkland View. And we'll just need one representative from the council and the appellant. So it's Mr. Collette from the council and one representative from the appellant. Yeah, so it doesn't, as long as that's provided at the time. So there should be three of us on the site. Yes. Okay. Any queries regarding the site visit? Bearing in mind that obviously the aim is really to get around the site, the private land that I need to access that I can't undertake at another time. I am conscious of requests that have been made, for example, the councillor to observe highway conditions at school closed time. I can do those during the inquiry at different times. Similar with public viewpoints, I can do them at other times during inquiries. But are there any queries regarding the site visit process today?
No, the only query, sir, is are you broadly familiar with where the Hawthorne site is? Because that's something that's not been built, but it's been consented. And when you're looking out from the site, there's some plans at the back.
It's to the south.
To the south,
to the south of it. Yeah, yeah. I am familiar. I did make a little trip to it yesterday, so I was familiar with where I went. So I broadly know that layout and what I'm looking at for where the Hawthorns is. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other queries before we adjourn to the site? Okay, I thank everyone for the contributions. At times 12:33. The inquiry is adjourned to the site visit and will resume in the room tomorrow at 9:30. Thank you. Thank you. I think would, as far as I'm aware, I'm not sure we can keep it today. I think there is something this evening.
Yes, so I think the room is in use this evening. I've just been told. Yes.
Yeah, it is in use this evening, so we will have to vacate. So it's probably a good thing that we've adjourned a little bit earlier. Thank you.